continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Ginger Tea drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, another wonderful, another great Monday right here on Good Morning Uganda. Thank you for joining us once again as early as now. It is 6:30 and of course it is the 25th of April 2022. My name is Philomena Mastiko. Welcome back from the weekend. We are into the final week of the month of April 2022. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, we're already trying to start and say goodbye to April and probably try to find a way of ushering in May. But before we get into all that, it was a very busy weekend, at least for me and quite a number of other Ugandans. Honestly, there was a lot happening. People were everywhere. We had birthdays to celebrate. We had quite a number of sports events that were happening. Honestly, if this weekend you are not out somewhere trying to catch up, I don't know what you're doing, because we are officially outside and there was a lot happening. So clearly you must have found a way to engage yourself. Well, maybe before I get into also all that, I need to find out how Mollen and Robert did spend their weekend, because last time I remember, the last conversations we had on Friday, there was a lot that each one of them had in plan. Robert was preparing, refueling the car and refueling his bike. Mollen, on the other hand, she didn't want to reveal, but I know she had plans. And maybe just to find out from you, Mollen, good morning.
Good morning to you, Philomena, and of course I want to say good morning to our family here. That is Good Morning Uganda. Well, the weekend I did get an invitation from Robert to take me as his +1 to the party that he was invited to. But guess what? Time reached and I couldn't see him calling me and like, hey, my +1, please come. I don't know. He probably replaced me within just a minute.
Well, and at this point, you still trust Ugandan men? Oh, wow.
I don't know. I had a little bit of faith left, but Robert has taken all that away. Regardless, I did get a little bit of awesome weekend, a little bit of, attended some party for a friend. But again, much of it was filled with work. And
wow.
Yeah, so
it was really a busy one for you.
It was.
And for the one who really had a lot that he had to attend, Robert, good morning.
A lovely morning to you, Uganda. A lovely morning to everybody with whom we celebrated, we enjoyed. It was more or less a national event, because even some districts had to celebrate. Other districts, maybe they will carry on with their celebrations. So it was a very interesting party. It attracted everybody, I want to say, every socialite. It was an event, I think, of the millennium.
Okay.
Yes, that was the party.
Okay.
Go.
You know, I can see the joy even written all over your face. It's very evident.
Even the energy he's using this morning, I feel like he still has that party mood, and it's like he's continuing to celebrate. If he's inviting other districts to join in, Robert, I feel like you've taken this celebration to another level.
But I want to say, one of the things I learned, never trust Ugandans.
Oh, wow. Why?
Because there are people I saw at the party and I'm like, you person. how come you've also been here? Because what they say on various media, on what you'd think maybe they will not attend that particular party. They were there, very jolly, dancing, and when the birthday boy got up to speak, I was very observant to see this boy, the joy, the cheering. I was like, you speak different things when you're in media, and then when you come here, you're different. What crop of Ugandans are you? But then I recognized that it was all about partying, and I think they came to celebrate with us.
Yes, I think that's the most important thing. But one thing I really loved about this whole event, I love how it actually brought in some people we had taken quite some time, seeing. I'll talk about President Kagame Paul for Rwanda. We had quite taken some time, having him, hosting him here on Ugandan soil, but we actually did see him make his arrival in the country, and I think this is really, really nice and really interesting. Maybe something good is going to come out of this one. But also another thing that did happen during the course of the weekend, I don't know whether Robert and Mollen, you are fans of rugby. We had Uganda officially, put their hand in, and they are now qualifying for the Rugby World Cup. We had the Rugby Sevens takeover between Saturday and Sunday. Even after the rains did disrupt on Sunday, we had doubts and questions, are the matches going to be happening? But Ugandans, when they decide to give you their support, they will give it to you. And that is what happened on Sunday. Even after the matches were put on pause, they did resume at about, I think it was around 2 p.m. And Uganda still did so well. There is just the way Uganda was shining. I don't know if you followed up Robert and Mollen. Did you?
Well, I saw a little bit of highlights for that game. Unfortunately, I did not attain that. But there's one thing I've realized about Ugandans and sports. They will show up and support. And I think this is a milestone for us to be qualifying for the World Cup in terms of rugby. It is a milestone. And Ugandans will just support. That's the good part. Rains or not, they will be like, come rain
They will
shine,
carry the
we
boots,
are there.
they will carry the umbrellas, they will carry the jumpers. It was very, very beautiful, by the way, because even before they put the games on hold, Ugandans had already started to pour in. The matches were still going on. And I was just wondering, wow, if only we brought this dedication to even other things, I think we'll be somewhere else.
Like the vaccination drive.
Like the vaccination drive. Like if we could actually, go through the rain or whatever the hiccups that we face and just make sure we go get ourselves vaccinated. I mean, we would be doing so well. We would be doing so well.
Well, sports is a unifier, I must say, globally, because that is when you see people regardless of their politics, regardless of anything. So sports brings people together. And when you talk about the Rugby Sevens, first I want to say rugby has placed its level somewhere in Uganda. Of course, it began so much with the corporate world. Then there's that feeling, even when you're at that place, that it seems it's not all about rugby, but there's some bit of social happiness that happens there, that even those that may come because they're not interested in rugby, there's still so much that keeps them around. And when we get to this level and you see all that supporting and all that, yes, we're not only be love for the game, but the environment that has been created over and over.
Wow.
Talking about sport, Philomena also noticed one thing, that Arsenal fans did not give us a good weekend. These guys were all over the place after that win over Man U.
You're joking.
The guys were the ones buying all the drinks. Hey. Like, okay, Arsenal fans, you guys need to be winning more.
You see,
it was amazing for them.
It was one of the best weekends. Yeah, you
should be Arsenal, I guess.
I've always been.
You've always been an Arsenal. You can always still an Arsenal fan, by the way.
Yeah.
I've always been.
These guys did not have, let us have a good weekend.
If we hammer Manchester United, for us, you see, that has been our arch enemy for a long time. So anything to do with victory regarding that team, well, it spices up our weekend. What a weekend it was.
Well, it was a nice one, but you know what also, Man U has failed to get to the top four. Like, they are trying. But if you see with Arsenal, even if they don't have hopes of winning the tournament, they will just celebrate a win over Man U. I don't know, it's just their thing. The moment they win Man U, they will just celebrate. They don't care. When
there
they
is
get
one
to
thing
the
I
top of the
believe,
table.
Mollen, even after seeing all this, the banter and the feuding between Arsenal and Man U, I feel like none of those two teams can survive without the other. Whether the other is failing, whether the other is winning, none can survive without the other. So when you see them even try to, make their point known when Man U has been beaten, because last week was not really the best for Man U. We saw them being whooped left, right. So and Arsenal celebrating. The same thing happens when Arsenal is beaten. Manchester City is exactly very happy or overjoyed about it. But again, I think that's soccer.
And when you go to social media, these guys are all forms of cartoons, funny whatevers. Sometimes you're like, am I really an Arsenal fan? Should I continue? But patience pays.
Indeed, it pays.
For Arsenal, I would say it's resilient. These guys are the most patient people. There are teams you support and you just know you're sacrificing yourself. You have to be that patient. I don't know whether I would put up with that. Well.
So wouldn't you date an Arsenal fan?
That is a headache. It's like you adding. Dating a sports fan is already a headache. Now, if it is an Arsenal fan, that is you going for double trouble.
We cannot trust her. This is a poor wife.
No,
speaking.
I can't.
Which team do you support?
But obviously, let me tell you one thing.
No, which team do you support? Because words of a co-wife cannot be trusted.
I am giving my honest opinion here. I'm giving my honest opinion. Being an Arsenal fan, you just double trouble. And whenever they lose, this person will even bring it home. You will see them at home being miserable.
But at least for us, we are used to such. But Man U, men of Arsenal are the best men to date. Reason being is they're patient, they are resilient. They support their team, whether it's doing well or not. So they're used to those shocks. Come to Manchester United, it is Zaka without shock absorbers.
You know what? I'm just going to, conclude this. And the one thing is that what a hard paper it is to date a Manchester City man. It's really hard. I can't even begin. I can't even describe it. But it's just a hard paper. So really, to all my Man U fans, we love you. But we have to tell it as it is. Yeah. Well, we also have to take a look at some of the stories that made it to the news desk over the weekend and also yesterday. The local stories, what happened within our home boundaries, what happened outside Uganda, what happened outside the African borders. And, just speaking of those stories, we are going to start off with what happened right here in Uganda. And, of course, that is with you, Robert.
And we'll kickstart with the sector of education, where we saw the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda commissioning a 1.7 billion shilling seed secondary school. The Vice President, Major Jessica Alupo, commissioned that is Palm Seed Secondary School in Olilim Sub-County, Katakwi District. The school is among the 70 schools that have been constructed in the first phase of Uganda Intergovernmental Physical Transfer Program, which was launched in 2019. The program is funded by the World Bank. Under the program, the Ministry of Education and Sports plays a supervisory role, while the Ministry of Local Government handles the procurement part of construction. The Vice President, Major Jessica Alupo, who is also the woman member of Parliament, Katakwi District, said construction of seed secondary schools is a government initiative. Alupo, who represented the First Lady and Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Kataha Museveni, at the commissioning of the Palm Seed Secondary School in Olim Sub-County, Katakwi District, emphasized that government is committed to delivering education services to all Ugandans. She explained that on accessibility, every parish in Uganda must have a primary school, every sub-county must have a secondary school, and every county must have a technical institute that is by policy. In line with quality, Alupo said government recruits teachers and distributes instructional material to schools in form of textbooks, computers, among others, to ensure teachers deliver quality education to Ugandan children. Alupo said government reviewed the education curriculum of lower secondary education to ensure that education delivered in both private and government schools is useful to the learners. She asked officials in the Ministry of Education and Sports to install panels in these seed schools to facilitate the teaching and learning as they wait to be connected to the national grid. She thanked the ministry for installing water harvesting facilities in schools being constructed.
And in another story, the principal judge, Justice Flavian Zaija, has survived an assassination attempt by unknown gunmen around Buwama on Kampala-Masaka Highway. Now, the unknown gunmen reportedly started shooting at the principal judge's car, hitting the rims. The judge and the occupants of his car were reportedly secured by his escorts. Judiciary has condemned the gun attack against the principal judge, Justice Dr. Flavian Zaija, who was traveling to Kampala. Now, according to the judicial spokesperson, Jameson Karimani, neither Zaiji nor his entourage was hurt. The incident happened after Mitala Maria Trading Center along Masaka, Kampala Road. According to Karimani, the security details of judicial officers need to be addressed. Justice Dr. Flavian Zaija is the third in the judiciary hierarchy. The failed attack on Zaija's life comes a year after the assailants attacked the Works and Transport Minister, General Katumba Wamala, killing his daughter and driver.
And now looking at the plight of refugees in Uganda. Refugees in West Nile are calling for an increment in the food ration they get. Currently, each person, a refugee, receives 7 kilograms of beans and posho for a period of 1 month. They are and get access to more land for agriculture in order to complement what they get from the World Food Programme. Refugees in West Nile and Acholi sub-region have experienced reduction in food ratios of 70% and 60% respectively following an outbreak of COVID-19. In company of posho and beans, 5,000 shillings is given to each in cash so that the person can buy own cooking oil from the market. Moses Tuongo and Frida Atimo, both refugees from Village 5 and Village 1 respectively, say that the ratio they receive cannot support them for an entire month. According to Moses Tuongo, giving them more land to practice agriculture would complement the food ratio they get from World Food Programme. The head of World Food Programme, Arua Office, Siadron Rusemereyere, explained how World Food Programme was compelled to reduce food ratios. The resident coordinator of the United Nations in Uganda, Susan Ngonyingi Namondo, said reduction in food ratio is an unanswered concern now, which will be looked into with focus on promoting livelihood opportunities in refugee settlements. However, the need for food by refugees will continue to rise as production of children increases on a daily basis in these settlements.
Away from that, women in Chiboga district have been challenged to embrace government development programs for better livelihoods. Now, Prime Minister Robina Nabanja fronts the recently launched Paris Development Model as a game changer for Ugandans' socio-economic progress. Nabanja sounded this while presiding over Mothers Union Day celebrations, where she donated 10 million for boosting their income-generating projects. Now, Chiboga Town Council Church was the place to be on Saturday as the parishioners celebrated Mothers Union Day. The occasion, which was also used to raise funds for completing a building complex, was officiated by the Premier Robina Nabanja. Treated to a guided tour, Nabanja was impressed by the exhibitions staged by the Mothers Union and the Christian Women Fellowship. The projects include beekeeping, charcoal making, and building projects. The Premier, who donated 10 million Ugandan shillings to the Mothers Union projects, decried the habit of illegal charges in government facilities, especially health centres. She reminded MPs, RDCs and CAOs to carry out periodic inspection of government facilities. Now, speaking at the same occasion, Energy Minister Ruth Nankabira castigated members of the opposition for over-politicking. She challenged them to embrace government's programs and government's development agenda. The guest preacher, who was also Vice President Mothers Union in Mityana Diocese, Esther Namisango Seguya, encouraged women to consolidate women's empowerment initiatives. And on his behalf, Bishop Emeritus Wilson Mutebi thanked the President for appointing the first woman Prime Minister. Now, the occasion was also attended by area MPs and district leadership.
And moving on to France, Emmanuel Macron has won 5 more years as French president after convincing victory over rival Marine Le Pen, who nevertheless secured the far-right's highest share of the vote yet. He won by 58.55% to 41.45%, a greater margin than expected. The centrist leader told jubilant supporters at the foot of the Eiffel Tower that now the election was over, he would be a president for all. Despite her loss, Ms. Le Pen said her vote share still marked a victory. The ideas her national rally represented, she told her supporters, had reached new heights. But far-right rival Eric Zemmour pointed out that she had failed just like her father, who preceded her. It's the 8th time the Le Pen name has been hit by defeat. An answer must be found to the anger and disagreements that led many of our compatriots to vote for the extreme right. Mr. Macron said in his victory speech on Sunday night, "It will be my responsibility and that of those around me." Mr. Macron's victory was welcomed by relieved European leaders who feared a far-right candidate offering a series of anti-EU policies. "Together, we will move France and Europe forward," said European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And moving on to Shanghai, authorities battling Shanghai's latest COVID outbreak have installed fences to restrict the population's movement. Green barriers have appeared without warning outside buildings where those inside are forbidden from leaving. One resident told the BBC a green fence appeared inside his locked-up compound 3 days ago without any explanation. For weeks, Shanghai's 25 million strong population has been shut in their homes while officials try to contain the city's worst COVID surge to date. Images of workers in white hazmat suits sealing entrances to the city's housing blocks and closing off streets with green fencing have spread in recent days on Chinese social media. Many of the fences, which are around 2 meters tall, were installed around buildings designated as sealed areas where at least one person has tested positive for COVID-19. It was not immediately clear why officials have begun constructing the fences. A notice dated 23rd April from one local authority being shared online said it was imposing hard quarantine in some areas. The BBC has not been able to verify these images but has spoken to a foreign national living in Shanghai who said green fencing appeared in his own residential complex 3 days ago. And back here to Nigeria, Nigeria's president has said the country is in shock and trauma following the deaths of at least 100 people from an explosion at an illegal oil refinery. President Muhammad Buhari described the incident in Imo State, southern Nigeria, as a catastrophe and a national disaster. Many victims were burned beyond recognition. The police are now looking for the owner of the illegal refinery. The damage to fishing and farming caused by the oil industry over the decades and the failure to share the oil wealth has led some to find other ways to make money. Illegal refining is attractive as in parts of the oil-rich Niger Delta, it is seen as being relatively easy to pull off despite efforts to hold the practice. Dozens of people were thought to have been working at the refining plants when they were caught in the huge fire. The death toll has risen as emergency workers go through the scene. Ifeanyi Naji of the National Emergency Management Agency told BBC Igbo that the number killed now stood at 109. We learned many bodies are in nearby bushes and forests as some illegal operators and their patrons scampered for safety, he earlier told the AFP news agency. Charred human remains as well as fragments of belongings such as flip-flops, bags and clothing were witnessed across the scene of the disaster by a journalist for the Reuters news agency.
Well, in the weather and climate news, writing about climate change inspires hope for panelists at the Festival of Books. Now, Olivia Claire Friedman found her way into writing about climate change while driving past a graveyard. I had this question: what if the effects of climate change mean that we lose our physical memories to the dead, and what happens to our rituals of mourning and grief? Now, Friedman's most recent novel, Here Lies, is set in the near future where environmental changes make it impossible to bury our dead. Braided themes of grief and hope animated a lively and ultimately hopeful panel on climate fiction at the LA Times Festival of Books on Sunday. Matt Bell, Maria Ampalo, and Ash Davidson joined moderator Eden Lapucci. One of Lapucci's first questions: how do you tell the story of climate change in a way that galvanizes readers to move out of despair to fatalism? Introduced the theme of balancing the terror of global environmental catastrophe with the reader's desire for some forms of succor. For Bell, in writing A Pleased, it was the research. Now, spending 4 years researching climate change felt like going to the doctor after you've been sick for a long time, he said. Getting the diagnosis is better than just being afraid. Now, understanding it helps me also a lot with my own climate anxiety I am facing into, which feels good, and learning that there are solutions, said by Davidson.
Well, also as that happens, it's about the time where we engage you this morning in our poll question, where we expect to hear from you some of your thoughts and of course your opinions, which will be of course sharing with the rest of Uganda as Good Morning Uganda goes on. And this morning is: how can more women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs in Uganda? How can more women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs in Uganda? Well, do share with us. Of course, the hashtag is UBCGMU. You can also already send us an SMS text, better yet a WhatsApp message, and the number is 0709 602 592 0709 602 592. Now use those lines to share with us your thoughts on this poll question. But also, while you are at it, it's very important to know that your health is very, very crucial. So you have to do anything and everything to make sure you are in check. And also when it comes to your immunity, it's very important for you to boost it. And I believe Robert has more to say on that.
I always hear a number of Ugandans complaining how treatment is becoming very expensive. But you can't prevent your body from falling sick. One of the methods is, apart from exercising, comes eating, drinking drinks that boost your immune system. And one of them are these products from Hallelujah Reflexology, that is Hallelujah Tamarind and Hallelujah Ginger Tea. Now what these do is they empower your white blood cells to fight off a number of diseases, and that means you will rarely frequent the hospital or visit that physician. So at just 1,500, can you imagine? You're fairly guaranteed that you will not have those visits as regular as you have them. Just rush to any supermarket, any shop near you, and ask for Hallelujah Tamarind or Hallelujah Ginger Tea.
At only 1,500 Uganda shillings, you could actually be able to cut yourself from spending money worth about 100,000 Uganda shillings and above with all these frequent doctor visits. Well, that's it. And right about now, we're going to get into the inspiration. Today is Monday. It's the first day of the week. A lot is yet to unfold for you as an individual. And yes, a lot is also meant to happen during the course of the week. That is where we come in handy to make sure we give you the inspiration that you need so that you are very enthusiastic on this Monday. You are full of positive vibes, positive energy to make sure you're ready to kick the week. And we're coming in with an inspiration song to get you out of that couch, out of that bed. And when we get back, of course, it will be more conversations, more discussions, and more inspiration. We'll be having the newsreel that will be kicking in the next hour. Myself and Robert over here will be discussing something quite interesting, and of course it has something to do with you as a Ugandan. But also right after that, we'll be taking you to the roads to tell you what's happening, which routes are ideal for you to use and which are actually not advisable. Later on, we'll be getting into the climate and weather information and news by Mollen, Kenyena, who will be giving you more details on that. And do not forget, we have the GMU agenda that will be setting in at the hour of 8. And of course, we'll be having more sports updates. Ruben Chibidango will be giving you more details, especially concerning the sports that happened over the weekend and over the last couple of days and hours. Yes, it is Good Morning Uganda. We'll be back right after this break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Tulantende ku program obulamu bwo.
was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals, out-of-this-world celebrations.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5.
This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live
for 2022. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and again I'm joined by Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono this morning for our newsreel segment, where we have quite a topic for us to be discussing this morning. But before we get into that conversation, just to remind you of our poll question that is running on our social media on Twitter, and that is: how best can women be encouraged to indulge themselves in more government eradication programs in Uganda? How best can women be encouraged to indulge themselves in poverty eradication projects in Uganda? Now, this morning, Robert, this is a conversation that we had some time back, and somehow it fizzed out. It faded out, and we did not give it a lot of attention. But now it seems to be resurfacing, and I know that very many of us are going to be. This is going to be. I mean, if I may put that, if you know that way.
We shall feel the pinch.
We shall feel the pinch indeed. Now, following the East African Management Regulations 2010, the Uganda Revenue Authority did come out to inform the public that effective 1st July, all vehicles of 9 years or more from the date of manufacturing will no longer be cleared under warehousing regime. Now, you know what this means? For all these cars that we already see in the bonds, you know, people spend there almost more than, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. All these cars, clearly, they're going to be phased out with time. So right now, as you get the money and you expect yourself to go to the bond to buy a car, you'll indeed just be expected to go to a showroom where you have to, you know, get a new car. But now that also brings me to quite a number of questions, which I believe we'll be able to talk about this morning. Uganda is a country, our people, looking at the economy, looking at our incomes. Are we ready for this move? Because I'm just going to give you a few statistics. Presently, for instance, the new motor vehicle sales stand at an average of about 2,500 cars per year. Now, this number, if you look at it, it's far, far below the imported used cars, standing at an average of 65,000 cars units per year. So, Ugandans, speaking as a Ugandan, as a local Ugandan, are we actually ready for a move like this?
Well, first, we started on a happy note throughout the weekend, but East Africa, the East African community, we lost so much. Most of our brothers in Kenya, former President of the Republic of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki. So we stand with them in solidarity at such a trying moment. Because, you know, Kenya is one of the countries where I've seen former presidents leave, don't run to exile, pass on the legacy, and there's so much we can copy and learn from them. So we stand with them at such a trying moment, most as they prepare to go for another election. You know, former leaders play a great role. Even when they leave power, they still have an impact on what they decide, what they advise. So we stand with you at such a trying moment, and may the good Lord welcome his soul in eternity with peace. Away from that, you asked a very interesting question. Is Uganda ready? Now, when you look at the reasons given, first was that these second-hand cars have a lot of pollution. And as the world is looking at phasing out fossil fuels, the world is looking at ensuring that we mitigate or reduce the impact of climate change due to human activity. Now, these old cars, if you look at them, a car comes in Uganda maybe 20 years from the date of manufacture.
Yes.
As a person who is driving this, you might think it is a chimney on the road. So what happens is there is so much that this car is a danger to the environment. You know, nature may not speak direct, but over time, it does speak. That is when you hear you have floods here, it rains here, then a number of diseases. They may not be direct that if you have an old car, maybe 1,000 of them in an area, you may not see that problem. But over a time, the ozone layer and all that science, the Mollens can explain it better. But what happens, it has an impact. Now, when URA gives that, and of course, globally, the East African community resolve that cars of 9 years and below from the date of manufacturing should not enter Uganda.
Yes.
The biggest problem is this the most urgent area we need to tackle if at all you're aiming at protecting the environment? That is the biggest question. That when we look at polluters in Uganda, you know, if you use science, measure the impact and all that, are these cars the biggest polluters? That is one thing we should ask ourselves. Because this has an economic and a social attachment to the lives of people. If all the cars of 9 years and below from date of manufacturing are the leading pollutants or the most threatening danger in terms of polluting this country, then it is a step in the right direction. If they are not, let's look at economically what this means to our country. Yes. Because I want to tell you, I was speaking to someone who is in this car business and very knowledgeable, and he told me, Robert, today what we call brand new cars, these vehicles we are talking about, 9 years in Japan with the good roads and all what, this car comes here. And remember, the newer the model from the date of manufacturing, the higher the tax you pay in URA. Model 2015 pays more tax of the same type of car than maybe model 2020. So he told me this is going to mean it's going to affect the importers, because what is going to happen, people will run out of business, because if a good is so expensive, then few people can afford it. I want to tell you, if you're going to buy a new car from 150 million, Philo, to 300, 350 plus, depending on the model, is it a four-wheel drive and all those other complications.
Yes.
Specifications. How many Ugandans can get 150 million and go and buy a brand new car? Or even when you look at some of these fairly latest models in Uganda, how many people, for example, look at these Primos, the latest model, which is not even 2017, compared to other models, how many Ugandans are driving this on the streets of Kampala? So sometimes we may think that you're going to increase the tax base, but taxing the same people more is a danger than looking for other people to come onto the tax scale of our country. What is happening? We have about 45 million Ugandans, but those paying direct tax to URA are less than 2 million. What does that mean? That now you're looking at all possibilities of again getting more tax from people who have been paying than focusing on how do we bring more people to pay tax. So this is going to be the danger. Economically, it's going to put car importers out of business. That is a reality. Benny, today you go to Pine, you go to a number of bonds, you're going to find this bond, they'll tell you, because the economy had issues. People look at priorities now. COVID told people to prioritize. A guy who would have 1, 2, 3 cars, COVID told them that maybe sell some of these cars, invest in agriculture, maybe set up a business. So people are no longer having that purchasing power. Even those that have, alternatives have changed away from cars, where Kirabo would leave home, the wife would leave home, then there's a driver to take the children to school. There are 3 vehicles. Now people are saying, no, can we use 1 vehicle? Rather use Uber or what? Because COVID taught them. So purchasing power has reduced. Second, there are people to whom a car is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Maybe you work, you leave home very late, you leave home very early, you leave work very late. And a car to you is a necessity. Majority of Ugandans on average, drive cars from about 20 M to 40 M. On average. So that will mean that these people cannot afford new models because they will be very expensive.
Actually, I'll tell you something, Robert. The managing director of Nissan here in Uganda, she's saying, listen, it's not that Ugandans cannot afford these cars, that the new cars that are in the showrooms, because at the end of the day, they're trying to get rid. Because even when you look at other countries, they're all trying to get rid of all this old technology, cars with old technologies. We've seen new cars. I mean, all these developed countries with electric cars. Almost every company has an electric car. Now, the managing director was saying Ugandans actually can afford the new cars in these showrooms. The problem is that they have a cheaper option. The cheaper option being the cars in the bonds. Honestly, if you're going to buy a car at about 250 million or 150 million, but you have an option of buying a car at about 20 million, 30 million from a bond, you would definitely go with that option. So maybe here the reasoning is we need to force people to look at that direction. We are not giving you option A, option B, option C, because we know that definitely, even if it were me, honestly, and I see there is a cheaper option here, why not go for this? So get rid of that option B, which is clearly very dangerous to the environment, and force people to look at that direction. You either buy a new car or just let it go and use public transport.
You see, for us who did history, there was a lady called Maria Antoinette. Now, this lady told people that if you can't afford bread, go and buy cake.
Yes.
What is happening is that sometimes our policymakers are not on ground to understand the lives of people. Ugandans were making noise. Members of parliament are given so much money to purchase cars. So I spoke to a few of them, and one of them told me, Robert, follow me, let's go to Toyota. Told me, what car does a member of parliament do you feel that can travel now? His constituency is in in the north, because it's among the Acholi. So this guy takes me there, and we wanted a double cabin. It was 400 million, brand new. So how much have we been given as MPs to buy a car? 200. Told me, can I buy this brand new double cabin that is going to work, that I'm sure is going to last for the 5 years I'm in parliament? Because a car of 0 mileage, a double cabin, good one, we can take you without having these repairs. But that amount of money. So when someone says because Ugandans have a cheaper option, who wouldn't like a brand new car? And would go for, because when you buy 0 mileage, it means your visits to the garage are going to be very, very rare. You know, it takes time to wear out. If we drive these old from Japan 10, 15 years, and you can have at least maybe 1 or 2 years of not regular visits to the garage.
Yes.
So we must understand economically, is this the right time?
Yes.
Is this the right timing? Second, the more people move out on the tax base. Remember, in Uganda, a few businesses I was discussing with the managing director of NSSF, deputy managing director of NSSF.
Yes.
And he told me they have a program, High Innovator. But he said the change with most businesses in Uganda,
yes,
they don't live to see their first birthday. Very few make it through the 5 years. So you need to grow a bigger tax base than saying, these cars, we are banning them. And then the importers will tell you, the capital I had, if I could bring about maybe 30, 40 cars, now I can only be able to bring maybe 10 cars. And our business thrives on the number of cars you have. The other element of saying, for such cars, you must pay. Now you pay tax at entry at the port. Previously, a person would have these cars in their bond, and they are given 270 days to clear. Today, if you say that is not, that is something you're going to stop, still you're putting many people out of business. So for me, I feel it is a very good move.
Yes.
But how prepared are we to get there? A car manufactured in Uganda, go to Kirabo Motors. There was one car on trial. I asked them, how much can this cost? My friend, you had to sell a kidney. You get it? So, in Uganda, have we built capacity for these assembling plants of vehicles? Do we have so much that a person would say, a new car in Uganda is fairly affordable?
Yeah.
A new car is fairly affordable. So as long as you've not put these incentives that make it fairly comfortable for someone to opt for this, I hardly see this going through, because remember I saw the Kasita people. They are now holding meetings, workshops, showing that people listen to our voices as well.
Because Kasita actually was really worried about this, and they say very many people are going to be thrown out of businesses, but also it's really hindering them as a body. And I mean, unemployment is going to, you know, take a whole, you know, it's going to be very dominant amongst these people. But let's also talk about the taxes. Uganda Revenue Authority, the taxman, actually believes that because of this, because many cars are in the bond, it's not a given that when you as a businessman bring in all the 40 vehicles that are going to be bought of. So the argument is that most of these cars are lying idle in these bonds, and it's causing quite an inertia in tax collection. But even after that, they did say that government is really incurring some colossal sums, especially when it comes to putting these cars up for, you know, to put them up for auctioning. And they say this could all actually be avoided by making sure that these people clear the taxes at the port of entry. So what do you have to say about that?
Most of the times when you're suffering from malaria and you have vomiting, high temperature, and what you do, you get a wet towel, you put on your forehead, you put on your body, or you go, you get tabs that stop the vomiting. The problem is you don't heal from malaria. No. And if you're not careful, you can even die. You don't. If you're not careful, you can die. Because for you think, okay, now we must first of all understand why. Because as of last month, I remember one of the commissioners, no, it was, I think, the spokesperson, boss of URS, said about 5 billion Uganda shillings is stuck in cars in these bonds, worth of revenue. 5 billion. That these cars we see in bonds, the tax they're supposed to pay that have not paid, amounts to 5 billion. Now if you look at our current budget, 5 billion is a lot of money. The taxman has a challenge. But taxman, how would you solve this challenge? What has been happening, you also must be very honest to ourselves.
Yes.
That some of these cars, after leaving Mombasa, when they reach here, some Ugandans are so crafty that they find ways of fidgeting with tax. And they don't pay that tax. They under-declare the tax. Some make calls and will say that is my car, and these may go without paying tax. These are realities. But also, we must understand that what makes a car expensive in Uganda? You know, if you've ordered for a car online, you look at its cost there, bring it to Uganda, it's almost 100% taxation.
Yes.
No? You get it? If maybe there you bought it about 20 or 15 million, Uganda. Not shipping, making it that expensive, but the tax. So that makes it very clear that these cars will be a bit expensive.
Yes.
And that is why you see that now 80% of Ugandans, even those don't buy those cars that are fairly new from the bond. How do they do it? You drive a car, you take it back. Then a bond now has what they call brand new. Many Ugandans don't pay at once. They will tell you pay 20% and drive. The balance, we give you maybe 6 months grace period for you to pay. That means purchasing power is low.
Yes.
So if you want more tax, ensure that this good is slightly cheaper so that you have more people pay.
Yes.
More people able to buy and pay. You're going to get the tax you want. Rather than saying, let's put tougher conditions. What is going to happen if in all bonds in Uganda, you had maybe 25,000 cars? And because of the people, you know, it's always very important to consult people in this business. How do you strive through? Okay, if a car comes in this bond, how do you sell it? Then understand the complications involved. Then they will tell you, we do butter. That is when these cars go very fast. And the butter, we undervalue what this one has, so we make these profits. Understand? Okay, if I'm to bring a policy, how do I leave a person in business who is thriving on butter? 2, no, we have a loan scheme, kind of, not even a higher purchase that someone takes. If I'm to have a tax mode, how do I leave this person in business? But when you come with a blank statement and say, that is it, many will fail because many of these may not have the tax right from the time when they are sending. Person will tell you, okay, we're going to do some bonding and because they know, right, most of these cars are driven from Mombasa to these warehouses of bonds. There is so much that is involved there. So one will say, I'm paying for a car in Mombasa.
That I haven't yet actually got
yes, at the bond, the car will arrive and very fast, someone will get their money and clear and go away. So all these dynamics in business, if you don't factor them from that perspective, and you look at policy and you let technical people do the technical work, sometimes you may end up that even where you are collecting maybe 20 billion, at the end of the day you're going to end up collecting maybe 5 billion. Will you have achieved your goal? Definitely it wouldn't. It is going to be very hard for car dealers who some thrive on loans, getting the cars. You run to these banks or money lenders, then you tell them security is the car in the bond. Once it is sold, I'm cleared. Or you can also help me around and say, I will sell this, you get your commission. But paying at the point of entry, at the port of Mombasa, is something very challenging that I feel it is a possibility because a law is a law. Policy is policy. The taxman may not have so much to discuss with him, but at the end of the day, we also must consider how many people we are putting out of business, more so at this time when our economy is just recovering. Second-hand cars have given a number of mechanics opportunities. Jobs, this is employment as well.
Yes.
So it has a lot of, in my opinion, more disadvantages economically than the positives.
Well, as we come to the end of this, it's actually not a decision that Uganda made. Just to remind you, back in 2018, the East African Community member states agreed to put a cap on the age limit of, you know, all these imported used cars to leave. Actually, it was about 5 years by 2021, and Kenya actually put its age cap to about 8 years, and Tanzania did put its age cap to about 10 years. Well, Rwanda and Burundi did not have a formal age cap that they put, but we're yet to see where that will happen. Well, for Uganda, we can actually see that this is going to be implemented from effective 1st July 2022. So if you're planning to buy a car, you may want to look at a car that has 0 mileage right about now. Well, that's it for the newsreel this morning, but before we go, just remind you of our poll question: how best can women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs? How best can women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs? The hashtag is UBCGMU, and of course you can send us an SMS text. You send us a WhatsApp message. The number is 0702960259. We'll definitely be getting into your feedback much later on. For now, we're going into the press review to see what made it to the stories when it comes to the New Vision, Daily Monitor, and of course the Daily Nation. Good morning.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Even with my grandson, a doctor at my side, I struggled to get the help I needed. But he saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He wouldn't stop fighting. He knew something had to change, and his vision was bigger than anyone could imagine. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals, out-of-this-world celebrations.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone and enjoy free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 Uganda shillings. That's free 2 GB for the first month and free 1 GB for the next 11 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings with free data for 1 whole year worth 86,500 shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 shillings only. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, in the press review this morning, starting off with the Daily Monitor, more details emerge on Entebbe Airport defects. Of course, the aviation regulator assures all is fine. Despite water leak through structures, yesterday flooding the departure hall, and of course did the septic tank at the new cargo complex. Now all these stories and details are on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Monitor. But also looking at the Cranes Flight World Cup Commonwealth, and that is the big story over there with the big picture. Winners 2022, and well, this is the Uganda's national rugby team, where we see the rugby cranes really flying high and filled up with a lot of excitement. All these details on the story are also over here in today's Daily Monitor. And when we look at also more news, Museveni Kagame discuss regional peace and stability, of course with the picture over there with His Excellencies Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Paul Kagame, who is in the country right now. Well, the lizard is also out there doing the most, asking Nabanja guards blocked at Muhozi birthday fete. Well, maybe they thought they were powerful. crazy over there. And still more news, government smells the coffee in bad deal. But what is behind this story, rather this storm Page 4, 26 and 27 have all these story in detail. So maybe you need to grab yourself a copy of Daily Monitor this morning and take a look at it. And on to the second page, Muhoozi explains what his 48th birthday signals. Now, this was a story that made it over the weekend. Everybody was talking about it. And still over there, we look at judiciary appoints 35 chief magistrates. And also taking you back in time, today in history, RPF rebels accept ceasefire. And still also in history, earthquake kills thousands in Nepal. When, where, all this in the Daily Monitor this morning.
Well, crossing over to the New Vision, the big headline right there shows the relationship with Rwanda is getting better, says Muhoozi, and that is after Kagame's visit. They also give you a picture right there of President Yoweri Museveni posing with the First Lady, that is Janet Museveni, and Kagame, President of Rwanda, right there as he was invited for the president's son's 48th birthday. There is more details to that story that is on page 2 and 3 of the New Vision for today. But also in the New Vision, the judiciary speaks out on Justice Zeje's gun attack. Now they give you more details, who attacked, who are the suspects. That is on page 12 of the New Vision for this morning. But in education, Ministry Human Resource System hacked. Who is hacking the system? We don't know, but there is more to that story on page 56 of the New Vision for this morning. Also in judiciary, they're showing you 35 new chief magistrates named. You want to know who that is? It is in the New Vision for today. New curriculum, there is more to that, and also abridged syllabus. Minister explains why it was adopted. That is on page 5 and 10 of the New Vision for this morning. Now also on page 2, they give you more details on Kagame attending Muhoozi's 48th birthday celebrations. On arrival, the tweets that were made, there is much more on that. And as Kagame tweeted that he had arrived in the country to attend the birthday celebrations of Commander of Land Forces Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. But also today in history, they give you Kakunguru buried. A record crowd attended the burial of Prince Badri Kakunguru at Chiburi Hill. That was on the 25th, 1991. And also 1923, the 25th of April, the royal wedding of Albert Duke of York to Lady Elizabeth Rowell's Leon in Westminster. Also, they give you much more of that in today's New Vision. But also, page 3 is again full of a lot of pictures coming through. That is with Kagame's visit at the State House.
And taking a look at the Daily Monitor sports, we're still talking about the Rugby Sevens who were really getting it all out there. And on the big page there, we see Philip Okorach belting out all his emotions after, Uganda officially qualified for the World Cup Rugby. And well, this happened over the weekend. Quite celebratory mood, I could say. And very many other Ugandans can actually relate to that. And I'm moving on to the second page in our local sports boxing league. Jab Master Muchibi eyes ticket to Birmingham Games, and also Experience serves Nemo Stars blockbusters down and not out, and of course FUFA plot next leap in women's football. All that in the Daily Monitor Sports this morning.
Well, the New Vision Sport also hints on the same, and they're giving you pictures. Cranes are safely in. They're giving you a picture of Nobato Kane scoring a try against Tunisia during the African Rugby 7 event. The competition was nearly washed out by rain, but they did progress through, and we are looking at Uganda now winning Africa 7 Cup to qualify for both the 2020 Rugby World Cup in South Africa, but also the Birmingham Commonwealth Games in the UK. Giving you much more of those details. Get yourself a copy and look at who is playing who and what is the fate of the Cranes at the World Cup. Now also in the New Vision Sport for this morning, they are giving you Chepwemoy strike ISF gold, and that is winning, and winning is increasingly becoming part of the teenage runner Chepwemoy. They're giving you much more of the details on her captain, the schools she has attended, and all her wins right there in the New Vision Sport for this morning.
Well, also away from that, taking a look at the Daily Nation, IEBC to aspirants, you have 3 days to pick deputy. Now, of course, Raila, who is on a tour in the US, could be, forced to announce his running mate from abroad. But I mean, who between him and Ruto will break the ice? That's the question taking the drill. KCSE, the top schools. Of course, there is a lineup to see how the schools performed over there in Kenya. And again, Othaya or city, that is Poza over Kibaki burial place. Now, Kenya did lose their former president, and well, despite a notice by the funeral committee that the former president, who died, of course, at 90 on Friday, will be buried in Othaya, there is a section of leaders who want his remains interred at Heroes Corner in Uhuru Gardens. Now, the story is also over there in the Daily Nation. Make sure you grab yourself a copy to get all the details and to also find out his final resting place, as Kenya as a country is also still trying to get into the preparations. And indeed, we are still with you, and we hope that the soul of the former president of Kenya rests in eternal peace. But also to just remind you of a poll question this morning: what are your thoughts on the increase of tax? How best can women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs? How best can women be encouraged to indulge in government poverty eradication programs? We do expect to see some of your feedback, and I will be reading it later on as Good Morning Uganda goes on. But also this morning, to just take you to the roads and our traffic updates coming in from areas of Chireka, Nakawa and Mbuya and all other surrounding areas this morning is what I want to focus my attention to. And when I start off from Chireka, I will say the traffic is terrible. It's very heavy. So if you're in these areas and you're planning to get to the city center and maybe you're not yet on the move, try to start thinking ahead right now and plan your alternative routes, because the traffic over here, especially when I start off from Chireka shopping center, it's really heavy as portrayed by the red lines. There is a traffic build-up and the stretch is actually very long. At one point we do have a very intense traffic over here as portrayed by the maroon spots. So the red spots show you that the traffic is crazy, but when the color is darker than red, it shows that it is actually hard for you to navigate through that area. So if you can get an alternative route, maybe you do that. Now this traffic actually stretches all the way till Banda, so it's not really something you can run away from if you're going to use the main road. However, from Banda, as you're trying to access Nakawa, it's actually a very free road as shown by the green stretches over here. There is nothing for you to worry about. However, when you get to Nakawa, you need to expect the traffic, because it is over there. It's a Monday, so yes, it is really expected. Nakawa connecting to Kampala Jinja Highway, it's not any different because the traffic is still over there. And we have also cars coming in from Ntinda over here to this junction. We also have cars that are coming in from Nakawa Jinja Road, cars that would have ideally taken a detour using Chinawata Car Road. So the traffic is also expected over here at this junction, so you also need to be aware of that. Now there is quite a green stretch over there as you're trying to access the city center. However, you need to know that you're not any safe, because that whole road is actually infested with the traffic this morning. So if you're leaving the city center, or if you're trying to exit the city center still using that main road, well, it's not any different. However, you should also put into notice that as you get closer to town, actually seems like the traffic gets heavier by the minute if you're coming in from those areas. Over here, it shows you that the maroon stretch here is really intense. As you can see, cars coming in from Newport Bay Road, and also cars coming in from Chireka and Boyogere and Nakawa over here still have to converge over here, where the traffic is actually very heavy. So you also need to put that into thought as you're trying to access the city center. And of course, the Kampala highway is a little bit free, and that is mainly because the cars are still trying to leave the outskirts, like from the areas of Boyogere, like I said, Nakawa, all these residential areas. So that could probably explain why Kampala is still a little bit empty and nothing to worry about. However, as you're approaching the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the roundabout over here, the traffic is also expected there, because this is like a meeting point of cars from many other places. So yes, it is very visible. The red and maroon lines are very, very dominant. So that is very important for you to note if you are getting to the city center. Kampala Road is not any different because the traffic buildup is actually there, and it's very, very evident as shown by these orange lines. I could say it hasn't yet become crazy or more intense, but as the minutes go by, the hours go by, it is expected, because eventually the cars that are causing traffic in the outskirts will all be converging in the city center. So you also need to start planning ahead if you are around these areas. Well, that's it for the traffic updates this morning. Please plan accordingly and also be very, very patient on the road, because you're not the only road user. We have cyclists, we have pedestrians, we have children, and very many other road users. So be very responsible while you're on the road, and try to cut down the road rage, because I have realized very many of us, it's very hard for us to control it and control our emotions on the road, but it can actually put you in a situation that you wish you shouldn't have been if only you had controlled your emotions. On a Monday morning, you don't want any chaos and disturbances like that. Well, I'll now officially hand you over to Mollen. Mollen, I will say the weather over the weekend, I cannot complain. It was cold, it was rainy, but I cannot complain. It came in right at the best time.
Yes. I feel like there are a lot of people that really needed those rains, so it was a perfect timing, and we could use more of that.
Yes.
Even for today. I don't know about you, but it looks like those clouds hovering over Kampala right now might eventually turn into rains for this morning. But I will be giving the forecast later on. For now, there is an emerging story of Twitter banning fake news on climate change. I don't know, Philomena, what you think about that when we involve social media and climate fake news.
Well, you know, social media, one thing I know for sure is that it can be very helpful, it can be very, useful, but at one point, it definitely will throw you off the rail. So sometimes you just need to be very picky with the kind of information you pick from social media. They will make up any story about anything, by the way. And sometimes they're really good at making it look like it's so authentic. So, I mean, for a climate change, we know very many people have been making noise about it. We've had a couple of activists, have their say on climate change, and especially on social media. So, I mean, if there are claims like that coming through, then Twitter by all means has to do all it can take to make sure, all it can do to make sure that they indeed ban all these fake news, because they'll mislead us.
Yes, that's for sure. And obviously we did see that Twitter came out to ban all the advertisements that are related to, fake news, especially if the adverts are actually proclaiming, a lot of propaganda on the climate crisis being fake. And this is one of the decisions that Twitter took to celebrate Earth Day, which was on Friday. Now, in their tweet blog, they said, "We believe that climate denialism shouldn't be monetized on Twitter, and that misrepresentative ads should not distract the important conversations about climate crisis." Now, I say this is something that we were really waiting for, because we have seen especially Twitter and Facebook being one of those platforms that have been misleading people when it comes to those uncontrolled ads. Now, I say it's a good move from Twitter, and for me, that's something that I have been looking at as it was long overdue. We needed to have this. But those denying the effects of climate change have also targeted sites like Twitter and Facebook, enabling them to reach hundreds and thousands of users. And now Twitter banning or these advertisements, we don't know for sure if they should also go ahead and ban the users that actually promote these ads. Now, that's something that they should be thinking about, but I say it's a good step that they're now, first of all, banning those that will be coming through. Because with advertisements, you cannot control them. Unless they are banned from the source, they will still appear, and that will be misleading the important conversations that we have on climate crisis. At least we know that a lot of people across the world have seen firsthand on what changes in climate have resulted into, right from the drought crisis to flooding to all these hurricanes and tropical cyclones to landslides. It has been something that is ongoing. Everyone is seeing that. Now, for you to go ahead and post something misleading on social media, that should not be allowed, and I'm happy that Twitter has come out to ban this advertisement. Now, moving on, something that was really interesting also across the world over the weekend is that we have seen a very good move in Britain. Now, this all started with a strike, and that was led by activists from the Extinction Rebellion DRAPE, and they had a banner saying that you should end fossil fuels now. Now, these guys actually took it to another level, because they have actually, through their activism with this banner, they have triggered a lot of conversation in Britain, and now a new task force has been formed that is due to sit today, Monday, to write rules forcing financial firms and listing companies to publish plans for next year. That is for transitioning to net zero company by 2050. Immediately this activism started, they had to make sure they react, and that's how governments are now. But it also poses a question of why can't governments act before activists take it to the streets? Because it doesn't have to take people going into the streets and making all these banners for you to react and make plans. Now, we did see that most companies, even coming from Glasgow, that is the COP26 conference, said they had to make up plans for a net zero campaign by 2050. But so far, a lot of companies have ignored that, and which is why we're seeing big companies that have been put to court. Especially Shell has been one of those big companies that have been put to court in a lot of countries on matters of it not publishing its plans and not showing what they have in store for minimizing climate change effects. But at least we have good news. There are companies that have stepped up. We did see Total Energies over the weekend also announcing that they will be publishing their strategic plans soon, and that will be addressing at least what they are willing to do in terms of climate action. But we still believe that we should be able to act on this, especially governments should embark on taking action before actually most of these activists take it to the street. Now, as if that is not enough, in Australia, actually people did carry out a hunger strike, and they were on day 23 of the hunger strike. What happens is that for them, they wanted to address the parliaments in Australia on what they should do to enforce climate action in the country. Now, after taking it to the streets, the members of parliament are going to get a scientific briefing on climate after that strike. And what is coming out is that the government's chief scientific advisor also will be addressing MPs about the climate crisis after the protesters' hunger strike campaign. Now, it took them 23 years, actually. 23 days, sorry about that, for them to react to what was being given out. And for me, it's kind of like, why wait? Because these guys have actually taken it to the streets to say, look, we are not satisfied with the parliament sitting back and not addressing the issue at hand, which is climate crisis. And now, after 23 days, they are reacting and getting a scientific brief. But how about the implementation? How about the action plan that is supposed to be implemented across Australia? Because we have seen that most of the companies, actually big companies that are polluting the environment, are in most of these developed countries. And it looks like they're also waiting on people striking or activists taking it to the streets for them to act. We need strategic plans, and especially when we're talking about fossil fuels. Now, I know African countries, especially developing countries, have been running to explore more in fossil energy, fossil fuels. But I can tell you this is bad investment, because guess what? We are moving to a world where we're transitioning from fossil fuels to clean energy. I wish all that monies were being used to actually have more on climate, on clean energy, because at the end of the day, we also get the effects of climate change. We also have flooding here in the country. We've also seen our seasons, varying to the extent that now we're looking at the potentially a fourth failed rainy season across the country, across East Africa. And that is evident because farmers have been crying out because the rains are not enough. They come in late, they go early, even the ones that are there are not enough. Even when the rains come, they are now associated with floods and landslides and all that going across, obviously related to climate change. So if we are already seeing the effects, then why not make up our minds to go into clean energy? That's still a big question, but I do know that we have a lot of policymakers and those supposed to be implementing most of these climate action plans. listening and also watching. So we hope for the better. But well, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather situation across the country, and we'll be tapping in from the satellites over Uganda for a real-time data. And what I can tell you right now is that we're still having mostly cloudy conditions across the country. But there is a rainy system that is developing, and that started a little bit earlier across parts of Jinja, bringing in rains over there. There have been a little bit of rains, especially towards the eastern part of Lake Victoria. That takes in Tororo as well, where you see those deep red, orange to blue, yellow and blue colors. That's the rainy system that I'm talking about. It did bring in a little bit of rains towards areas of Tororo and Jinja. And I will tell you one thing, parts of Kampala and across Entebbe, Wakiso, it looks like that system is actually headed your way, so you might be bracing yourselves up for another rainy morning across the area. Now that system is obviously moving westwards. That means that it could even extend up to the central part of Uganda, areas of Mubende as well. Right now dealing with mostly cloudy conditions, but we could be looking at much more of those rains. There's also one that is coming through that is from the southern end of Lake Victoria, and looks like that might be headed for most especially the western part of Lake Victoria. That takes in areas of Masaka. Right now just a mix of clouds and sunshine, but looks like that system might be reaching your area later as the morning progresses. Cloudy weather across southwestern Uganda, that is across Kabale Highlands and Mbarara as well, Bushenyi, Fort Poto. We're looking at mostly a cloudy morning across the area, but we'll go ahead and take a look into the forecast, see how we're faring in terms of the numbers that we're expecting for this morning, and also the weather that we do expect across different areas. We'll start off with the central parts of northern Uganda. We do have Gulu, Ajumani, Kitgum and Padel. We're forecasting isolated showers starting off with a warm 27 degrees. That will be also going into the afternoon. Across the western parts of Lake Victoria, we do have Masaka, Kalisizo, Sembabule, Rakai. We're forecasting isolated showers, and that will also be starting off with the chilly 23 degrees centigrade. We already have cold weather over there, and that rainy system is expected to continue into the afternoon. Across the eastern parts of the country, Soroti, Katakwi, Moria and Kumi, we're forecasting light showers. We already have those clouds developing, and that will be bringing us rain starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, but those rains will clear as we head into the afternoon. Now across the southwestern part of the country, we do have cloudy conditions, but we expect a little bit of sun to come through as we continue with the morning. That will be starting off with a cool 24 degrees centigrade. Well, across Mount Elgon Highlands, we're forecasting light showers. Those will be across several places, looking at the fact that we already also have clouds developing over the area, and we'll be starting off with a chilly 23 degrees centigrade. We could be looking at a similar system even later in the afternoon. Now, the eastern side of Lake Victoria already dealing with most of those rains as we speak. We do expect those to continue throughout the morning. That will be also starting off with a cool 25 degrees centigrade. Now the eastern side of central, we do have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke. We are forecasting those rains to come in later as the morning progresses. Also, it will be cold weather with a 25 over the area. Well, the central part of Lake Victoria, we already have cloudy conditions over the area. We're talking about Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso, and Mukono. We're forecasting those rains to come through as the morning progresses, and that will be starting off with a chilly 23 degrees centigrade over there, and we could be looking at that system coming through even later in the afternoon. So it will be another day for you to keep that sweater with you, that jacket with you, because we do expect much more of those cold conditions to continue even as we head into the afternoon. Well, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here, but also later on we'll be having sports highlights, and that is by Ruben Pima Chivirango. But later we'll also be looking at Good Morning Uganda Extra that will be coming through with Jagenda Semakula. I want to wish you a good morning. My name is Mollen, Kenyena.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Jingati drink and Hallelujah Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Hallelujah Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Hallelujah from all shops around.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Need to send money to a loved one but you don't have enough on your phone? Have you run out of fuel but you don't have enough money? Do you want to pay for yaka or water but have insufficient funds? Or do you want to shop but you don't have enough money? Don't worry, get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals, out-of-this-world celebrations.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Even with my grandson, a doctor at my side, I struggled to get the help I needed. But he saw something that day. He began to work day and night. He wouldn't quit, even when people said no. He wouldn't stop fighting. He knew something had to change, and his vision was bigger than anyone could imagine. He made it possible to receive quality medical services anywhere in Uganda by simply using a phone.
This is a story of a regular Ugandan just like you, who harnessed the power of technology to provide a solution for us. How about you tell us your story? UG needs more of you. To share your story, visit airtel.co.ug/UG needs more of you or call or SMS 162.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome to the hour of 8 minutes past the top of the hour. Time for our GMU. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. Now, this morning, we are going to be discussing yet another issue of national concern where every Ugandan actually, right from the day you're born, this concerns you, and we want to be looking at the operations of the National Identification and Registration Authority. In brief, it is known to many as NIRA, and many think it's all about national IDs. Well, we are going to look at a number of services that it offers. Remember, it was established in 2015 by an Act of Parliament to ensure that it is in charge of documentation and, of course, issuing national identification, issues of birth, even death are among the services they offer. And also to let you know that very soon, all Ugandans, majority with those old national IDs, they will be expiring and we'll be looking forward renewal. And also shall be discussing a number of things that have made it in the media, electronic and print, regarding services of NIRA. And with me on set, I'm honored to have the Executive Director of NIRA, that is Madame Rosemary Chisembo. You're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much.
And we are delighted, of course, knowing this is something that concerns all of us in general. Now, to begin with, let's understand the functions or the services offered by NIRA for this to shape better our discussion. We don't want people to ask even what is not of NIRA.
Okay, thank you. NIRA was established by an Act of Parliament in 2015, as you mentioned. Subsequently, we were established to create and maintain a secure, credible, and accurate national identification register. Our national identification register has 4 parts to it. The first part is for citizens. The second part is for non-nationals, or the locals, them aliens living in the country. The third part is for births. Anybody born in the borders of this 231,000 square miles, and any death that occurs within these 231,000 or 241,000 square kilometers of this country, kilometers. So, after we register you, what is registration anyway? Registration occurs when you get a national identification number.
That is the NIN.
The NIN. And for an alien or a non-national, an alien identification number. Then for those above 16 years, we issue an ID as a document you use for identification. So we have a unique role, a special place in this country of keeping a register of our identity. And we are, as you said, privileged to be in that position. I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you, UBC, for allowing us an opportunity to share services with the
well, that was said, the services offered. Our viewers will also be able to engage with this morning on our WhatsApp number, because I know there are many Ugandans that have a lot of questions to the Executive Director of NIRA, because this is something that concerns everybody. Now, Madame Chisembo, let's begin from birth. Many Ugandans today, when we talk about birth registrations, some feel comfortable knowing I was born in a hospital. Therefore, it's an established hospital. I have my receipts where that was spent on labor, and some hospitals still on discharge. There's a form they give. So many think that is registration. How does NIRA come into this, and how is this child registration done?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. As I told you, we keep a register. Think about it physically as a big book with 4 parts to it. The birth registration process has 3 key steps. The first one is notification. Notification, whereby they say, look, omwana yazalidwa. That is the first step. That is what the hospital does. The hospital gives you a discharge form. The hospital acknowledges that a child was born in this place, but they do not register you. The registration happens when you receive a NIN. Now, notification and registration are free. Yeah, what? They are free. I know in Uganda there are many free things that people pay for, but they are free. The third process in birth notification, in birth registration, is certification. Certification is, I want a birth certificate as evidence that my child was born in such and such a place. That is step 3. It's optional and costs 5,000 shillings. So, notification, registration, certification. The same happens for death. Notification, somebody has died. Registration, we record and close the record of that person on the National Identification Register. Certification, I want to present proof to somebody that this person died. It is only in this 3-step process, it is only the certification process that costs 5,000 shillings. Known to us, some town councils have another charge, especially for deaths that happen in community. Now, what happens if you're born in a community or if you die in a community? The good thing, 73% of births in Uganda are now happening in hospital, but 64% of deaths happen in the community. So there's a reverse of that. If your birth happens in a hospital, they give you the discharge form. We have some fragmented systems that notify us. You've mentioned mass enrollment and mass renewal that is coming on 2023-24. We are going to place we're going to upgrade our systems such that they don't just stop at notification. They trigger the process and you're able to say, I want a certificate, or you are able to receive the NIN after the notification process. Right now, because of our fragmented processes, processes and systems, we receive the notification, then another process takes off to come and register you, because those 2 systems, that the one notifying and the National Identification Register, are separate, built by different vendors, are not speaking to each other. So we have a presence of 117 locations in Uganda. Those constitute of the 112 districts that were there in 2016, the time the organization was set up. But currently there are 146. So without fail, we have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
We have approximately 17.2 million unregistered Ugandans. We have 453 permanent staff. That means for every 50,000 unregistered Ugandans, there's 1 staff.
That is understaffing.
Yeah.
But also still on birth registration. You know, Ugandans always want to know, why do we do it? I'll give an example. We had a time when people were not very eager to have national identification cards. When the telecommunication companies said it is a must, when getting some jobs, when filling some forms, you would see how Ugandans lined up, were craving to get registered. Now, why would a parent know that maybe when this child gets to 16, there will be a registration done, and they'll get a national identification number, and then also they'll have the card there. So why would someone bother to register? I've seen parents, a child as early as 2 months, some weeks, some even just from the date of birth, begin with this birth registration process.
Why is it important? When your child is born, what do? You name them. You name them. Why? You are recognizing them. You are appreciating their birth. So, when a child is born, our way of naming them, and in African culture, it's the naming ceremonies. When I worked briefly in West Africa, and there was a ceremony called Pulnado. That is the child doesn't come out of the house until they are named. And on the day they are named, then they come out of the house. So, why do you name them? You are recognizing their presence. So even in government, it's for purposes of recognizing. Because the moment you are born, you are entitled to certain things, not just from your parents, but from this nation. There are certain rights that some rights of yours that must be observed. And I'll give you a classic example of why it is very critical as the world goes global to you've mentioned financial inclusion. Okay, the process has a name, inclusion, but in essence, we are trying to identify this child, identify the resources that are due them, identify the rights that must be observed. Now, because of the globalization, many children whose actual deaths are not known, of birth are not known, are usually trafficked or sold out illegally to do services that are beyond their age, that do not respect their status as a child, that are not mature, that are more mature than their age. So that is the importance of the birth notification process. For government to be able to know someone is born, you know, sometimes they say, government eyambe bameka. Baliwa. Which place is having the highest number of births? Which place needs more schools in the next 5 years? Which space needs more roads in the next 10 years? Which place needs more hospitals, maternities? So in registering births, we are providing a vital statistic to government to know where resources should be channeled, focused, and distributed.
Also, another question now regarding birth, before we leave it, how quick, how fast is this process? Because much as we appreciate that there is a very big road, the task, there are so many people to serve, yet the workers are very few. Some of these things seem so tedious. Some of them seem to be taking forever. How fast is that?
It's a three-step process, as I mentioned earlier. Because of the fragmentation of notification and registration, it takes longer than it should. But 2023, 2024 is a year of promise for us in NERA. Because we are saying from the moment you are registered, the law prescribes that within 30 days we should give you a NIN.
That would be a miracle.
It's a miracle that will happen.
That would be a miracle.
Yeah. But so actually the law mentions that 30 days after, it's a late registration. Yeah. But anyway, we have in Kampala, in the urban areas are luckier because they have higher birth records than the rural areas. In Kampala, we are staging in hospitals, in health center 4s. I know children are born in more than those places. But we are saying if you can come to health center 4 or a hospital, then we can get a chance to also not just receive the notification, but also register the birth. You find someone, we have a presence in the hospital.
That I can testify.
Yeah, we have a presence in the hospital.
I've ever gone to Chibui Hospital, and the moment the birth is done, they tell you, our work is done, but please, if you can, just look down there, there's a NERA official. And true, the NERA official was there. So for that, it takes a few minutes, parents, and a few interesting questions. Is this your first son? You know, is this the father? Then you feel like, okay, DNA not yet done, but I'm the father. He has my national ID. That is the most interesting part.
Yeah,
Like,
but
okay.
we update the register. Maybe that's a role I forgot, and it's one of the recent most controversial aspects of the conversation of NIRA. We update the register. It is commonplace in NIRA to find two fathers saying, and so both of them come, they have done DNA, they bring a statement, or things like that. Then we update the register with that information.
Okay, so now we move away from death. We go to the normal registration, where we saw mass registration, but then later now many Ugandans still find themselves, they don't have a national ID, but they want one. And this is why I think NIRA has been on the spotlight for delays. Sometimes we hear issues of corruption. Others say in Uganda it is very hard for one to get a national ID, much as many of us have them. Let's look at this process.
There are 25.7 million registered Ugandans who have NINs. We have, however, enrolled about 31 million. What does the difference mean? Enrollment is the beginning of the process, whereby we say, give us your fingerprints, give us your biographic data, and give us your biometric. Then the next step is image verification, and the staff and equipment go through each picture. So each of those 31 million faces was seen by someone. So the software kind of brings and says, Mami Nyonyintono, ainayo gwafanana. But this person says, no, this is not that one. Now, if the match is very close, maybe Mami Nyonyintono has tried 5 times nganira ya munyiza nyo nayenga agezako. So he said, this is the same Mami Nyonyintono. We merge him and have one NIN. Otherwise, we would give you 5 NINs. After the image verification, there is some people end up in the fingerprints. The system searches and says, okay, has this still trying to check if you have tried before to register? So in this sense, when there is a match, maybe you have 3 applications, it is passed on to somebody for what we call manual identification. So this person says there's an 80% chance that this person is the same person, still match the applications and have a man. But the last stage in the data processing is called citizen verification. You know how what do you call it? We start seeing what otambudde bulungi ng'omuna Uganda, this time not ng'omuganda. Naye otambudde bulungi ng'omuna Uganda. Bw'oba totambudde bulungi ng'omuna Uganda, application yo ekomawo tefuna ki nini. Tekitegeeza nti toli muna Uganda. It doesn't mean that you are not a Ugandan. It simply means that you have not given us sufficient evidence to know whether you are a Ugandan by descent or by birth. Now, there are other Ugandans who, by reason of I've stayed in this country for 30 years, they are Ugandans by naturalization. Then there are also Ugandans by registration. So, you can be a Ugandan in any of those categories. That doesn't mean one category is higher than you are more Ugandan if you are by descent than the one who is naturalized. No. It simply means that that's your category. You still enjoy the same privileges, are entitled to the same rights, and have access to the same resources, whether you are by naturalization, registration, or by descent. Now, another role that you're seeing us doing a great deal, I forgot to mention it, is verification and authentication of information. If you go for a passport today, they will say, do you have a NIN? If you don't have a NIN, first go and what? And get a NIN. So, in essence, those are some of, we do 6 million such verifications a month, or sometimes 6 to 10 million of our register, someone coming electronically to check it. So in this sense, that is some of the things that make this process slower than usual. So in this sense, each record as it comes in has to be viewed. Now with 10 people in data processing, even if you have 100, there are 194, I think, persons, permanent staff who collect the information. Then it becomes a bottom choking point with 10 people to look through this data. For purposes of comparison, in the first mass enrollment process, there were over 14,000 boots on the ground. There were 800 people in data center. That's why we had the first huge 15.8 million registration. So
today you have 10.
Today we have 10.
Oh.
So it's a choke point. Now, usually when you have poor technology and you are understaffed, it becomes a melting point for corruption.
Definitely, it's very fertile.
Service becomes a bargaining tool.
There's so much demand.
If you can give me something. But to make matters worse, as a country, we don't have a culture of whistleblowing. Even if some people pay 500,000, others 2 million, others enormous amounts. When the person complains and goes on social media, you know, when you get to them and say, okay, can we help you? Can you pin this person? They say, no. But you imagine, if just 100 people who have been fleeced reported, would be rid of this vice. Would be rid of it.
So they're benefiting from it.
They don't benefit from. They are not winning, but they have. They are crushed. Their spirits are dampened. They are like, this is Uganda. But for us to fight corruption, somebody must be willing to go the whole 9 yards and say, look, I was fleeced for a free service. I'm here. I'm willing to testify in a court of law. And I want you to believe me, Mr. Kirabo, that if just 5 people, I've given you my number, they can call you in case they're afraid to call me. If just 5 people were willing to stand up and say, so and so took such and such an amount of money from me, we will protect them through the process of prosecution and have them get justice and even their money recompensed. So in essence, and I believe you me, after those 5 people, we won't need to fight.
But you think then that will have solved the problem, Edie, because one of the things why this is happening practically is the understaffing.
That is true.
Because when you look at this load, about one person serving about 50,000?
Yes.
Practically, you even have to commend you that the people are getting national IDs because this is too much load. So do you think that reporting and arresting may be a solution, or it is improving on the staffing?
That's true. For any problem,
because if the demand is less, if I just walk in like I'm registering for a SIM card, previously we had change with these telecommunication companies where if you lost your SIM card it would be a problem. Today it's just a matter of walking with your national ID, you get a SIM, then they tell maybe in about 1 or 2 hours you're connected. Who would then pay for that?
That is true. I want to use that example. In 2018, when the SIM registration process began, you remember the battles at those shops were and the lines. But when the process was done, it's now mainstreamed, it's operational. Now what happened is that the mass enrollment process of 2015 was supposed to complete getting all Ugandans onto the national identification register. It didn't happen. Now, the second thing that didn't happen and is a target of our mass enrollment and renewal of 2023-2024 is putting a measure to have every birth registered. Now, if every birth is registered in time, within the 30 days that the law prescribes, within a couple of years, we will have very few unregistered people. Because you imagine, they say we give birth to 1.4 million Ugandans every year. We have added 8.4 million Ugandans in the last 6 years, up to the age of 6 years, who would have been registered and would have had, remove 8.4 from the 17.2, would have had only 9 million unregistered. So my point is that we are now among the first modules of the new system that will be installed is the birth registration system. And what is it saying? We're saying let us at least have every child achieve the mind of the law, that within 30 days they have their NIN, whether they are aliens or Ugandans. When that is done as a first step, we will start the mass enrollment of those who have never received IDs. And also we'll see where that takes us. So we think that, God willing, if we're efficient with the new system and the new technologies, and the mass enrollment process will again pick, the numbers will be the same, maybe probably 800 numbers that were in the data center at that time, to try and clean this process. And then we remain with operational services. I've lost my ID, I've changed my name, I've gotten married, I want to add a name, I've gotten divorced, I want to remove a name, and stuff like that. So there is hope.
There is hope, as long as we can impress that is a child registration. Dear parents, let's save Nira the burden.
And allow me to interrupt you at that point. We also need to promote the importance of birth registration, because our staff in those hospitals can't sit the whole day with no one showing up.
For me, it was very easy because there was no line.
Exactly.
They were telling people, well, first before you leave, please go and do.
Exactly.
And it's very fast. The computers are there, thumbprint, a few questions. But while we were there, and the guy tells you that is Chiburi, I come here. Very few
people, and yet more people. No, it's not that I wish everyone who was born could register. So we are also going to get into a promotion in a few weeks called the birth song competition. The birth song competition is going to be targeting children between the age of 6 and 14 to write a song about notification, identification, and registration. Why? Because that song, when written by children and promoted, becomes an indelible mark of. I'll give you another song. There's a song we used to sing when we were young. We young women and men of Uganda, marching along the path of education. And it was, we all know it. We have just started understanding what it meant, but we sang it for assembly, we sang it for whatever reason. So we are saying we want to promote birth registration, and we are going to we are going to hold a competition for the young children to do just that. Let them write a song, because when they write a song, it will be unforgettable by their colleagues, and it will help us as part of our communication strategy to get registration done.
Well, birth registration, but just remind you that you can send in your messages on our WhatsApp number, which is on your screen. Also, the traditional SMS, I'll be reading it out. That is the number 0709602592. I'm with the Executive Director of NIRA, and we are looking at services offered. Please do not call that line. It is simply for a text message or our WhatsApp number. I will not pick calls, therefore do not waste time doing that. And of course, it's an inconvenience when you want to read messages and someone is calling. But also, recently I saw in the media, and I want to you to clarify this, that if I want to correct information on my national ID, I will be charged 500,000 Uganda shillings. Many were like, oh, that is half a million. Why?
Okay. I want to first give two sets of clarification. The first one is that this was our proposal to, it's not that you will be charged that. It was a proposal for you to be charged that. But maybe I should give the mind behind it. You are born once. Nafa abalokole. We are born again, but we don't write that second day as the date of what? Of birth. In life, you come to this world once, and you live once. So, in essence, that date should not change. However, because that's actually another reason why we should promote birth registration, because there might be important missing information at the time of your birth. You might not know the real date. Maybe your parents were illiterate, and it emerges later. The triangulation of facts emerges later to show that the date you knew as your date of birth, or maybe you discover your real mother, or there are certain circumstances, genuine circumstances. Children born in IDP camps, there are those genuine circumstances where they find out that the date you first captured on your Form 3 or enrollment form is not your date of birth. There are also genuine circumstances whereby as I said, this country has had a lot of war. You imagine a child born in northern Uganda in the time of the Northern War. Many times they may not know their actual date of birth. However, you imagine an organization which all of a sudden, since its inception, from the time the labor markets to Oman began to the Middle East, you suddenly see a spike of 200 to 1,000 applications a week. Meaning that almost 500,000 people would want to change their date of birth in the year.
So that they fit in the age required.
So that they fit in the age. Sometimes you're looking at this child. They're a child. They are a child. Like the children who end up doing a housemaid work. Now they're like, no, I rather export my labor. Now, the requirements of that are that you should be at least 21 years. I don't know, some 25. Yes. So we have experience where we're experiencing scenarios where children are trying to be 21 years. The elderly are trying to be 80 years.
To benefit from SAGE.
To benefit from the social protection grant. When NSSF came, people are trying to be 45 years and above. So in this sense, it's an economic reason. And we're saying for the persons who are looking for a deterrent, why 500,000 shillings? The young people and the elderly who most fall into the category of persons trying to change their ages can't afford it.
Okay.
So we thought it would be a deterrent.
A deterrent.
But government has not, and I want to emphasize this, government has not yet agreed with it.
Okay.
It was a proposal.
Then that's clarified. Let me now look at some of the messages. Of course, many are similar, but I'll go through them quickly. I am Muhwezi Ronald from Katete in Barara. Registering for a national ID takes too long. This situation is actually too bad and so discouraging. What measures are you putting in place to reduce this long period for registration? Still, good morning. I am Vivian, a student. I have a national identity card, but my name was misspelled and my age isn't correct. Yet I gave them the correct details. I want to know if I will be helped without charging me. Helped without charging me. Vivian, I think that's what you meant. Then I'm George. How fast can I get a birth certificate when apply from NIRA? And how much is it? Well, many of these were addressed. Hello, thanks. Good morning. Thanks for the show. Most of us have a difference in the information on our IDs and academic documents. What could be the way forward? That is academic documents and the national ID. There is a problem there. Then Ndagunha, this one. Well, let's lose English. Some languages I can't read. Though you've used that. Well, good morning. I would like to inquire how long it takes for one to get a national ID. That is the most asked here. I want to commend NIRA for its good work. More should be done in giving out info to people through the media. The negativity in community is huge. I got my name rectified within a single month and did not pay for any penny, as opposed to what people say and I hear them talk about. Well, okay, more information should be shared out by NIRA. I think many of the messages are on the period, and of course seeking more information outlets for them to get to know what is happening. Let me look at this one. This is Mwonge Ahmad from Kayunga Bale. Thanks to host officials from NIRA. My question is, if my ID has different names from that, what can I do? Basically, those are the two areas. Time and also variation in a name, misspelled and things like that. But let's also look at the SMSs here. We have thanks for the show Kirabo and the Idinira. Teacher Joel Namisi from Bale City. What does it take to get another ID, and in which period does it take me to get one? Then, good morning UBC, please, I misplaced my ID and time has come to renew my driving permit. How can I access my NIN? Peter Chamunywa in Masindi. Let's go with those.
Okay, I'll start with measures taken to improve services. As I said, I don't like whining, you know, but anyway, NIRA's technology was acquired 10 years ago. As a result, if I asked anyone in this studio to give me a 10-year-old phone, this is where I tell a block, I will not find it here. Now that gives you the, we are using technology which even the person who has very little money looks for a cartouche. But government, by reason of its expenditure, still had 10-year, revenues, had 10-year-old technology. That has greatly impacted services. At the time this technology was acquired, it was not put online. So online services increase reach. They increase what? Reach, meaning NIRA would have more than one place where you can come for a service without necessarily coming into our offices. Now, by reason of technology, you are compelled to receive a service by direct contact. The first thing we are doing in the new technology is providing you a service that gives you access even online. I know we are late, but better late than never. So, in this sense, there are certain services we've taken by reason of the technology we got. It's called a vendor locked-in technology, meaning we bought it from somewhere who did not sell intellectual property. They didn't sell what? Intellectual property. Therefore, we don't have the source code. Meaning what? When we desire to make a change, we have to call that person back. Come make your change. Okay? Now, government terminated the maintenance and support agreements of that contractor, of that vendor, in 2019. So any improvements that are required cannot be made for us. So we hear your cry, but our hands are tied from a technological perspective. Can't you put your services online? Don't you? We know that services can go online. However, by reason of contracts, we can now. Government is in the process, signed another contract with another vendor in 2018, and is in the process of acquiring new technology. So, in essence, we are in the middle, we are in the transition, this difficult period. If we were digging a road, we are at base layer. You are inconvenienced, there is dust, but you know that in a few years, I'll have good kakeka tarmac. So we are in the trenches trying to get a new service and a better system for you. And hopefully 2023, 2024, we'll have a new system and an improved service. You can quote me on that one.
Okay.
Now,
2024, yes.
2023, 2024. Now, there are two scenarios. You gave us information. You gave us what? Information. We entered different information. Ekyo kankiddemu ne mu Luganda. Ku kipapula kye wawandiika nti nze Rosemary Kisembo. Ne tuwandiika Rose Mahi. Ne tuwandiika KISA
Kisembo ne janga Kirabo
nga Kirabo Kisambu. Kakati awo tukola tutya. Bojoku, when you come for enrollment, we scan the first paper that you filled. After scanning it, we keep it on the system as part of the national identification record concerning you. At the bottom of that form, if you turn, there is a point where they say, I declare that everything I have said is true. It is actually a statute, it's a declaration, it's a legal declaration. So, when you come back to change that information, which is allowed if what you are presenting is an update and is accurate and is credible, you are required to sign what is called a statutory declaration. Omenyawo kiri kye wagamba with a new declaration. If, however, the error is occasioned by NIRA, which we accept that as human, we make errors, that one I will not shy away from. It will cost you nothing to change that error. I repeat, it will cost you nothing. How do we know? Meanwhile, people are on Twitter. They're saying, how do you know? How do you know? And they're like, you guys, you are using technology. Technology will tell us. We will know. We will know that you are the one who made the error. Now, after someone has seen the form, it is commonplace to say, no, the lady who was there is the one who told me. If I tell you to kill someone, will you kill them?
Definitely not.
Exactly. So if the lady tells you that you put 2020, that it's your date of birth, and you know that it's 2014, do the right thing. So in essence, that's another way. If the error is occasioned by NIRA, we shall require you, we shall not require any money from you, we shall make that change, and you go, just like one of them mentioned. If, however, the error is occasioned by you, maybe you forgot one of your names or something, and I'm going to address the one of academic documents, you will be required to swear a statutory declaration. Why? We have no right as NIRA to update your information. The first time you gave us information, you swore and said it's true. Now we need you to break that swearing, establish a new fact, and we also keep it.
Well, in the interest of time, I just want to thank you, MD. Maybe in less than a minute, your final shot.
I want to thank the people of Uganda for being patient with us. Our service is not where it should be. But I thank you for being patient with us, and we promise you that we're in the process of getting better technologies to serve you better. In 2023-2024, the mass enrollment and renewal process will start again, as it was in 2014. Allow me to use Uganda, teweibala. Do not do what happened in 2014. I don't need this card. Please come and enroll. You will need this card. The law in section 64 to 67 tells us insurance, banking, communication, everywhere you'll need this card. So we promise you that it will be a smoother process. We promise you that we'll have newer technologies. We promise you that we will also begin to register births as soon as they happen for the accuracy and credibility of information. For those of you changing your information, where the change is not occasioned by us, you require to swear a statutory declaration establishing new facts. You require to present documents that support your declaration. For example, if you are getting married or you got married and you added a name, bring your marriage certificate saying, this is my statutory declaration saying I want to add a name, but then, in addition, this is the evidence that I got married. Otherwise, people will be naming anybody's name. So,
thank you so much, Madam Rosemary Kisembo, that is the Executive Director, NIRA, for enlightening the country on your operations and, of course, clarifying on a few issues. We hope we'll be getting you more at times because, yes, there is demand for information out there. Have a lovely day. Ruben is ready here to take you through the world of sports.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.